G'day mate, Jed here again. We're going to go through a few things now in the timeline. So you've been looking at the interface in general, but now we're going to dive right into the timeline here. As you can see, I've got a whole stack of clips sitting within this timeline right here. So how does it all work? Okay, so first things first. Over here we've got a V1, A1 and A2. Now what you need to understand is that is linked to this clip here, which is inside our timeline, our bin, sorry, not our timeline, our bin. My God, I just confused everybody. This is linked, so V1, A1 and A2 is linked to this composer window here, which is linked to our bin in this window here. So as you can see, when I flick through, I'm changing to different people like that, okay? And these little tabs here indicate that. Now I can turn the vision on and off, okay, like that, just on that little tab on the side. So it could very well be that I just want to load the audio and not the vision. So I can deselect my vision, and now it's just going to be the audio that gets put into the timeline. So if I just go right to the back here, because I don't want to affect this project, I've got a mark in a mark out point there, and if I insert that, it's just going to be the two audio tracks and none of the video there now. Okay, so that is how you navigate with these little panels in your timeline here. So these V, A1 and A2, likewise I can turn off my two audio tracks like that, and I'll put that in again. Oh, hang on, I need to actually select a track, and now the video goes in but not the audio. Does that make sense? So I've just got the video track selected but not the audio track selected. Okay, I'm going to delete these because I don't want them in my timeline. Voila, we're back to it. Okay, so I've just shown you how these little panels work. Now, if we look at these, the rest of these panels through here, let's say I want to put something into my timeline, but I don't want to impact any of the stuff behind that clip where I'm going to put it in. What I can do there is just select all of the tracks in my timeline. I'm not going to select this bottom one because that's my music, and I can always extend that later on. And now, when I insert this little section here, it's going to split the tracks behind it and push everything back. As you can see there, it split that audio track and pushed it back. Okay, so that is having all the tracks selected. If I just wanted to do like a quick edit in a timeline where I just have one shot sitting in there, I can deselect all my tracks like that, and now I'll insert it, and now it just pushes that video track back, but it keeps all the audio track stuff in sync there. So there we go. That is how that works. Control Z, because I don't want to do that to this clip here. But that is how we select these tracks on the side, and that's what happens when we select these tracks on the side. Now, moving across a little bit, let's just close this down because I don't want to confuse you guys too much. Moving across a little bit, we've got these little tabs running along here. Now, what they do is they allow us to look at each of the tracks that are sitting there. So I've got a track there, got a track there, I've got a track there. Okay, so it allows us to navigate between each of the tracks there. Running down the side here, we've got S and M. S is for solo, so as you can see, it's now muted all the other tracks. M is for mute, so now you're muting that singular track, so you can listen to all the other tracks, but just not that track. Or you can listen to just those two tracks and everything else is turned off. Okay, so that is what happens on that little section down there. Now, down the bottom here, we've got a little Hamburger Menu, and that's got a whole stack of features in there, and I will show you some of them as we progress through the course. I don't want to show you all of them because I don't even know all of them. I know most of them, just don't know all of them. Okay. So over here, we've got this little tab here called Focus. Now when I press it, it expands into the timeline so I can see in more detail, frame by frame, and I can line up my timeline to the cuts in the playback there. Okay, so that's Focus. The next one over is Toggle Source Record. Now if I click on that tab, I'm now toggling between my footage in my bin to my footage in my timeline. Okay, so that's what Toggle Source Record does. The The next one is video quality playback. Now, if you are using Premiere and stuff like that, you've got a similar thing here where you can go a quarter, full, half, full strength, and a couple of other options in there. Likewise with Avid, but what they do, instead of doing it the easy way, they decide to do it with colors, because who knows, they're Avid. But anyway, yellow is like the poorest quality, so the lowest quality, so you're looking at probably about a quarter of the quality there. And then you've got half, which would be about 50%, and then you've got full, which would be 100%. But then you've also got full 10, which means 100% plus the 10-bit information for your color. And then you've got blue, and God knows what blue is. I don't. Anyway, so the one that I usually use is just the full, not the 10-bit, because unless I'm shooting in RAW, that's something that I will sort of play with there. But for this project here, we just shot it in a log format, so I don't need to worry about that. These next two tabs, step in and step out, are useful for effects editing, but to be honest, I mean, I don't actually use it that much, so don't stress too much about those. We will go through and explore them at a later date. Okay, the next one we have over here is profiles. Okay, so at the moment we're looking at Jed's profile 1, but I've got another profile up here called color audio. So if I click on that, it's now changed some of the colors of my tracks, and my view looks a little bit differently. So it hasn't changed the timeline. All it's done is just change the view of the timeline. So let's just go back there again and have a look at Jed's profile, and there we go, there's a different one there, and another Jed's profile, and there's a different look there. So that shows you how we set up profiles. You can also save as, so I could do a few changes in this timeline, and I'm going to, because it's not the right colors that are laid out here, and I'll just click save as. There you go. Oh no, I yawned in a presentation. God, I hope I'm not putting you guys to sleep. Next thing over here is a search bar. Now what this will allow you to do, especially if you're working on like a feature length documentary or something like that, and you're looking at a clip and you're like, yeah, I'm using this clip and I just need to see where it's positioned. I'll just go 9702 and I'll just press enter there, and it's going to go to the first time or the closest to where that clip is. So if I expand from there, you can see that that's 9702. So that's going to allow me to search my timeline for a specific clip. And as you can see, I've just shown you what the next tool does. The next tool allows me to scale in and out of my timeline. So I can slide in and out. So if I put my playhead just here, and if I scale in, I can make sure that my playhead is exactly at the start of that clip, so I don't get little sort of dropped frames sitting within my project at a later date. So that's my scale bar there. As you can see, when I go to my scale bar here, there's another little bar that pops up called the scroll bar, and that allows me to scroll through my timeline. So all these little features. Damn, I'm yawning again, but that's because I've been doing these tutorials all day. Not all day, actually. I've been doing them for a big chunk of the night. I've been busy assessing all day. So, okay, let's check this one out here. So that's the scale bar, and that's the sliding bar that runs across here. So that's essentially working in your timeline in Avid. Now, of course, you can do the same things in Premiere. Here's a tutorial that shows you how to do it.
Stay organized using the link.
Let's be honest, we don't need to see that, so I'll just close that and we'll just move on. So there we go. That is laying out our project in our timeline. Now let's jump across here and have a look at a couple of these functions sitting up the top here. Okay, the first one is a meter tap. So what that's going to do is every time that the audio hits the peaking point of red, it'll freeze onto the red. So the peak is going to hold, infinite hold, or reset peaks. So you can go through and adjust those peaks in that tab there. The next tab is your effects mode, and as you can see, I've already got some effects sitting in this box already, but we're not looking at that just yet. The next tab over here is trim mode. Now if I click on that, I'm now able to slide this trim point left and right to try and let's just have a look. If I slide it left and right, you can see I'm trimming the edges of that clip there. I'll just zoom in so I can show you in more detail. I'm trimming my clip from left to right. Okay, so fortunately they're both the same clip, so it doesn't really bother me either way. But if I was trying to sort of say Here we go, here's a shot here and here's this shot here, and I want to do like a J and an L cut. I can click on that tab there, the trim mode, and I can just expand her out a little bit. So her dialogue is finished there, but her shot continues and the other guy starts talking, and then we cut to him. So that's called trim mode right there. Once again, we got the step in and step outs like we've got them down here for visual effects, but we'll look at them at a later date. This is a cool tool. This is quick transitions, because God knows every editing program has a bazillion transitions, and realistically you only use 2 or 3 of them. So let's check out quick transitions. When I open that up, first of all, I can select which tracks those transitions are going to apply to. Okay, and then I can select what the transition is going to be: a dissolve, a film fade, fade to color, fade from color, dip to color, S3D depth transition. We might have to look at that in another time. But down here, then we can go position, center of cut, end of cut, start of cut, or we can custom it. Or we can just go in here and click on the duration and go at 15 frames. We want it to start, and we want it to go for 50 frames. And there we go, the transition will now, but as you can see, I can slide it around, go anywhere. Okay, I can also trim it down in this panel here to get it to exactly what I want. Okay, and likewise, if you're sort of sitting through here and you're going, you know what, I'm just not entirely sure, you can set it to the left, to the right, or to the middle, like that. Target drive. Now, it's really important that you set your target drive to where all your project stuff is, so always check on that. Now, in Avid, I'll show you later on how to set your target drives, but right now, let's just have a quick little breeze through it, and there it is. Okay, so then we're ready to put our transition, so we can go add and render, or cancel. Now, if we go add, it's just going to put it in there, but it may not play back properly if you're working with, like, say, big red files on a inferior computer, something that's just not capable of editing those red files. So if you put the transition in there, you're probably going to end up with a black screen as it plays through that section there. Whereas if you click add and render, what it's going to do is it's going to create a unique little video file reference that then will allow you to play it back nice and neatly. But yeah, it's a cool little thing. I'm going to click cancel. Now, that is transitions. The next one over is render effects. So like I was showing you there with render effects, render transitions, you can also render effects. So if your computer starts to play up when you start putting, you know, effects into your project, you can select the clips that you want to render. You click on render, and it'll render those clips out, so it's easier to play back. Collapse. Now we're going to look into this in a later date. And remove effects. So let's say we've put an effect in somewhere, we're not happy with it, we click on that tab there and it's going to remove it. But there's so many ways to remove effects in Avid. Mark in and mark out, mark clip, or clear both marks. Now, pretty self-explanatory, we've been doing them up here in class. So marking in, marking out, and splicing in, which is 3-point editing. Down here we've got tool palette, so if I open that up, there's a few extra tools that, let's be honest, I've never really looked at. There have been times when I've been trying to find a specific a tool, but yeah, most of the time I don't. Add edit. Okay, so damn, I'm tired. Okay, so here we go. To put an add edit in this clip here, I'm just going to put an add edit there, and now it's split that clip in half there, and away we go. You can edit it even more. But let's be honest, all these tools up here, very few of them will you actually use up here, because you'll use your shortcut keyboard settings. Very important. Use your shortcut keyboard settings. Okay. Oh, transition manipulation. Now, I was looking for this the other day. I'm glad I've now found that. Okay, great. Because Avid always just changes itself and reinvents itself, and that was something that I was looking for. Basically, if I put a transition into a clip and I want to adjust it at a later date, I can highlight that, and now I can adjust those transitions. So if I go into these little sections here and expand out, and if I've got that highlighted, in theory, I'll be able to select those transitions and move them around. But in theory, and it doesn't seem to be working, so I'll have to look at that again and work out why it's not. Okay, head fade and tail fade. So that's another way of putting some transitions into your clips. This one here, to the left. To the left, to the left, to the left. Isn't there a famous song sung by someone? I don't know. Anyway, okay, so let's say I've expanded out, and the reason why I have is because I want to show you what these tools do to the left, to the right, and select in and out. Okay, so if I click on to the left, it selects all the tracks that were highlighted over here. So let's just have a quick look again. I'm going to click out of that. Okay, and if I have all my tracks highlighted like that, it's going to select to the left, but watch what happens when it hits a black spot there. It selects everything to the left, but as you can see, the black spots continue beyond that point there, like that. And that can get really clunky with editing. So what I do is, I do use to the left and to the right quite a lot when I'm sort of trimming back projects or editing projects. So what I tend to do is, I'll select all the tracks, and then what I'll do is I'll add edit, and let's put a cut through that entire black space there like that. Now I'll put my playhead near the end of it, and now when I go to the left, it only selects that space there. Does that make sense? So it makes life a lot easier. Now that's really helpful because now I can sort of like click and drag and drop that further up. If I was trimming projects backwards or forwards, I'm going to Control Z and Control Z that because this is a live project and I don't want to ruin it. Likewise to the right is the exact same thing to the right, and select in and out would be if I have an in and out point in my timeline, it would select. So if I click the select in and out, it would select the clips within that in and out point. And once again, as you can see with the black sections, they bleed over because there's no cut points in there. So Avid treats the black space like it's its own clip. So I'm going to clear those marks. So don't want to do that. And that is it, Smart Toggle Tool. Now Smart Toggle Tool means that when I press it, so see I've got the red, yellow arrow, I can hover over the edges and I get my trim mode sitting in there. There's a lot of different little functions I can do. So I can go, okay, I want to move this shot over a little bit, so I'll just click and drag it like that. Now depending on how the clips work, so if I click and drag this clip across, it's going to go over the top of and delete the clip in front behind it. But if I select it in the yellow arrow, it's going to click and drag and split that clip and put the other bit of it in front. Okay, so that's the yellow arrow and the red arrow. That's overwrite and splice in. The next little thing is this trim button over here. Once again, I can go into trim mode and trim backwards and forwards like that. Okay, so pretty self-explanatory. Whereas if I go to the yellow trim, I can trim backwards. But as you can see, it starts pushing all the clips behind it in and out. Okay, Control Z because I don't want to ruin this. So they're using the trim modes. And if I go to the middle of that cut, it becomes a white split line across. So if I click it now, I'm in trim mode where I can trim just those isolated two clips left and right. Okay, so that is using these tools along here, using these tools down here, and now I am a complete tool.